Hi everybody, thank you for joining today. We're going to talk a little bit about our new Key Stage 3 Mastering Maths series. So I'll just introduce everybody here. Firstly, we have Steve Cavill, who's our series editor, and he's going to talk a little bit about our textbooks and our practice books, which are available in print and ebook format. Then we also have Josh Lury, who's one of the authors that's worked on our digital resources, and he's going to talk a little bit about the pedagogy behind that. Before our digital specialist, Nikki, will give a short demonstration on the digital resources and how they work in our new platform, Boost. We'll also have myself, I'm Christina, I'm a marketing executive for Maths at Hodder Education, and Tom, who is our maths publisher. All right, I will hand over to you, Steve, now.
Yeah, as Chrissy said, I'm Steve Cavill. I've series edited the new Mastering Mathematics textbooks, and it's been a very exciting project to be involved in. First thing that I want to say to you is that one of the best things about the series is we've made sure that we cover absolutely everything in the Key Stage 3 programme of study. It's actually quite a massive document, and there's a lot of unusual bits in there that you might not expect always to be in a Key Stage 3 programme of study. You know, I myself was quite surprised that things like congruent triangle proof now is supposed to be part of the Key Stage 3 programme of study. And so we obviously cover that, and we cover everything else that is there. So yes, we do cover everything that's in that. What do you get in the actual books themselves? You will find there's a standard format that we use for each of the chapters. So most of the chapters start with a coming up section explaining what topics they're going to be studying and possibly how they're going to be studying and what they expect to learn as they work through this chapter. There will then normally be some sort of starter problem. It could be an investigation, it could be a puzzle, it could be a word search. There's all sorts of different things that it could be. And it's a way of hooking the students into that topic, trying to get something that's relevant to them, get them interested, get them on board with what we're actually doing. Before we actually start the teaching, there is then a skill checker. So the students and their teachers can check, do they actually understand the relevant content from Key Stage 2 that they need to be able to move on with this topic. They tend not to be very big, the skill checkers, but it's making sure they know the important details. We then get into the teaching bit of the textbook. So we obviously explain each topic very fully, very methodically, making sure that we cover one point fully before we move on to the next point. We do try and take a mastery approach to that. So you will find that we follow the CPA approach, the concrete pictorial abstract. We use the sort of things like bar modeling, other manipulatives, like algebra tiles, things like that, so that they are using very much a concrete way of dealing with things. After they've actually gone through this and had the topics explained to them, you then get on to the questions. We band the questions in 3 bands. So we've got, not very originally, band 1, band 2, and band 3. Band 1 is working towards the expected standards of somebody at that age. Band 2 is working at the expected standard, and band 3 is working beyond or above the expected standard. We would expect the majority of students all will do band 2, so they're working at the expected standards, but also we'd expect them to do either the band 1 questions or the band 3 questions. You probably wouldn't have time for all your students to do all of the questions. There will certainly be more questions than you will need. As well as banding them by difficulty, they are also banded by assessment objective. So every question is labelled either as assessment objective 1, AO1, or AO2, or AO3. AO1 is your standard skills that you need, your bog standard mathematics, your bog standard questions. AO2 is your reasoning or /proof /show that questions, and AO3 is your problem solving questions. Those of you that are familiar with GCSE will know that all GCSE questions are also banded in the same way. We have exactly the same assessment objectives there. So you've got plenty of questions. At the end of each chapter, there is a review for the students or their teachers to actually check that they have understood the material in that chapter. Every 3 chapters, roughly, 3, 4, depending on how big the chapters are, you will find a progress review. The way that we've actually organised this is that we would roughly expect you to get to a progress review every half term. So if you're the sort of teacher that likes having a half-term test for your students, then we have arranged the chapters in an appropriate way and given you a test that you could actually use with your students. And at the end of the book, we have our list of keywords, so all the key vocabulary that is used, and we give definitions of every new word that the students come across. And that is my quick trip through the actual textbooks. Linked in with the textbooks, we also have practice books. So we have the practice books for the people who are working towards the expected standard, and then we have the practice books for the people that need extending, for the people that are working beyond the expected standard. So there is plenty of material for all your students there at the right level for them. And I think that is about all I was going to say for now. I don't know if you want to take questions at this point, Chrissy, or leave it till you've had the other.
Unless anyone has any burning questions, I think we'll probably save till the end.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, Steve. Right, Josh, would you be able to tell us a little bit more about the digital resources?
Sure, yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Steve, for that. So my name's Josh Lury. I was one of the author team working on the digital resources that work alongside the textbooks. They're not just e-versions of the textbooks. They're materials that are adapted to be in line with and complementary to the textbooks. So what I've tried to do is so the downloadable PowerPoints, what I've tried to do to demonstrate them and to talk through some of the thinking behind them is to harvest aspects from different ones on the, and I've chosen this algebra strand to look at so that we can see some of the functionality and then also talk about some of how they develop through the different books. So bear with me while I try and share my screen. You should be able to, can you see my PowerPoint now?
Yeah, that's working.
Great. Okay, so here's an example. There are 3 main types of digital component. One, the first and probably the largest PowerPoint, so they're called developing understanding. And so these include exposition, they include some example questions and thinking and some discussion activities to go with those, and they're structured in a way so that they match the section in the textbook. A lot of what you'll see in the PowerPoint will be the models and images that are used in the textbook and some of the thinking. And what we've tried to do is harness some of the power of digital so that we can have some slightly dynamic images appearing in order to go through some of the concepts. You'll see what I mean in a moment. Anyway, so developing understanding. There are slides which are exposition, introducing key terms. All key terms are highlighted when they're introduced. So I won't pause too long on that one. And so this is from book 1 in some of the earliest aspects of algebra, introducing equations. So there's an exposition slide there. Might go on something like this, links to their knowledge from primary school. So with a good knowledge of the flow from what they would have been working on. And then it will have perhaps some worded exposition that you can work on like this, where the concepts are very clearly spelled out in line with what's in the book. Starting at a level that is accessible to all of the students. So the whole class should be able to access this and the teacher should be able to curate discussion with the whole class. It might move on. It might be quite a visual exposition. So in this case, I've picked one out here that is bar modeling. And so we've got here, and you can see some slight use of the dynamic features of the software. So you can see that some of the thinking can be very simply animated so that you can generate discussion around how the concepts can be thought of in that dynamic way. This is another, so this is from the same sequence, showing that it's not just leaning on bar modeling. We might use multiple representations as they're used in the books as well. So here we've looked at the bar model and the balance model side by side. Similar sort of thing where you can see how the concept develops through some very, very simple animation, and then the thinking. And the idea would be that the teacher can use this to have some discussion with the students and to use what's appearing and disappearing as part of their discussion rather than just static text on the screen. I think there's a place that students feel comfortable with the static text in the textbook, and that's really important for having that the images in there, and then this complements it by doing this slightly different job here. And then I'm just going to show that rather than just relying on drawing out models or having fancy artwork, actually what it's always moving to is that the pupils have a written method or a worked example so that you can see how actually it's not that we're expecting them to draw out some fancy diagram each time. And as you'll see from the recent Ofsted research review, rather than distracting methods, what we're hoping is that the models and images are generating understanding in order that we get to these non-distracting methods that the students feel comfortable with. They've got a good understanding of what's going on from working on the explanations, but actually they become fluent and efficient in their reasoning. It then moves on. So having done some of the exposition, you get a slide like this where you'll have a very quick problem presented at the top. So here we've got one that links with the exposition. There'll be an opinion. So opinion one. Often they're helpful, often they're not helpful. Opinion two, it may be that one of them's right, it may be that neither of them's right, it may be that both of them are right, and then we've got a worked answer. So in this case, neither opinion one or opinion two is correct. We've tried to reference that as much as possible so that we can use the opinions to generate discussion around common misconceptions or potential misconceptions, and then we've got a bit of a worked example there as I move through the slide. This next bit I've harvested from the next book. So this is to show how the materials from book one flow into the materials from book two, and you can start to see some of how the mathematical content progresses. So this is from solving equations with an unknown on both sides. And you'll see again, there's some exposition. In this case, a familiar model has been taken, but actually it's taken to the next level of complexity so that we're expecting them to progress through the concept. Again, we've harnessed some of this dynamic work so that we can show the stages in the calculation. And again, very simply, so that we get to the stage where we can solve the equation. So here, rather than simply having the fancy artwork, we've got the worked example here. This is what we'd be expecting them to be able to write in the books, and so on and so on. Steve mentioned algebra tiles. So again, in this, rather than bombard everything all at once, algebra tiles are introduced in this section because we're looking at user zero pairs. So again, we've got the model, and then we've got the calculation building alongside so that we can see how the model relates to the actual equations that they'll be writing. So just an example there of how this flows through. And again, so this is from the next book, but similar structure, opinion one, opinion two, and then the answer. So in that case, fairly straightforward introduction to what's happening. And over here, the model on the screen so that students can hang their discussion from that and base their thoughts around what's being taught. This appears in different sections. So we've had the exposition, we've had some questions, and then there's some further activity that might be a bit more open-ended, might be the start of an investigation, or it might just be something that's prompting some further thinking or some slightly deeper thinking for where we're going to go with that topic, or something that might act as formative assessment towards the end of a sequence of teaching or within a lesson. I was just going to mention this and draw this out because although the digital material does use bar models, it does use algebra tiles, and it will use other aspects of the CPA approach, or what might be what you might expect to see from a mastery scheme, actually it is also in line with what we saw in the recent Ofsted report, which was that we don't want distracting methods. We don't want people spending hours spending all of their thinking on how can I draw this bar model neatly in my books, and actually they're thinking about making their books look right, whereas in actual fact, it does always work towards the more efficient method, which is what we'll also see in the textbook. And you can see, again, very simply, as it appears gradually, you can have the discussion with the class bit by bit and use that as the worked example. And the way that it builds allows you to be able to discuss how that might look with the CPO approach having gone before and how this is more efficient, and so on and so on. For the next stage, I've just taken this from even later in the series, where we'd expect by the time they've been through this is where they're solving equations with brackets. So it's from a later unit. And you can see again that now that we've developed some of the understanding and we know that the method is there in place, rather than having to always have the bar model, always rely on the balance model, the algebra tiles, we can do some of this thinking because we've become fluent with the equations and the algebra that's going on there. And we've got some very clear exposition of perhaps to go alongside the textbook, but drawing out some key aspects of problem solving. So in this case, it talks about making decisions about when is it suitable to use the divide first method, or when is it suitable to use a method of expanding first, and how you might decide to adapt your methods based on those. So it does draw out those key teaching points, and with also some of that problem solving and reasoning alongside. Next part of that sequence there. So just wanted to draw that bit out. So that's one of the main teaching tools, I suppose, would be that developing understanding. Also, there is a PowerPoint to go with each section that's called a worked example. So it does a slightly different job, although I think you could use it flexibly. So here, when you look through a worked example, there's a toolbox which would draw together the different skills and tools that the pupils need in order to be able to work well in that unit and with those concepts going on there. So it's a little bit more of an overview, I suppose. Here are the tools you'll need. Again, it's got some exposition where you have the keywords are highlighted. It'll be much more focused on having those key worked examples so that the students can see the method they might be expected to use, or the efficient methods. Again, drawing out some key concepts. So here we're sort of talking about taking care with multiplying coefficients, and just drawing out the idea that a common mistake that's made is not multiplying correctly when you've got a negative coefficient. And then for this, the next section of a worked example would be, here's a problem, and rather than the opinions, it's just, well, here's the model solution with the thinking that goes alongside it. So that's a very simple one from the start of that unit. Might become, as we move through it, the problems become slightly more involved, and here the answer is written very clearly in a very structured way, without the opinions, without the discussion. But so as a teacher, you could use this as in, right, we've done the learning, we've done the discussion, we've done the exploring, now we need to really consolidate. Can we work with this fluently? And here's some worked examples. Here's some good ways of presenting your work. The third main aspect are these PowerPoints, which are called outside the maths classroom. So the idea would be that it's perhaps applied, it's based on a real life context. It's supposed to be as linked with the topic they've been learning, but show that it has an application outside. I've just picked out this example fairly at random. This is from sequences, and so it draws on the idea of the Fibonacci sequence. So it's from where they've been doing some linear sequences, and then it expands their thinking to, well, let's think about some other sequences. We'll start to draw this. And the reason I've picked this one out is because I know that the pine cone and the sunflower is used endlessly as if suddenly their appearance explains the Fibonacci sequence, whereas in this one, it goes some way to try and actually show where it is that the Fibonacci sequence appears. And so you can see, again, we've harnessed some of that. Just very simple digital tool to show there's 8 spirals there, and then the same pine cone, you can find 13 spirals if you're looking in the other direction. So I just wanted to pick that out because it frustrates me sometimes when you see a picture of a sunflower as if it in itself explains the Fibonacci sequence. But here you can see that hopefully the use of the digital resource will solve that forever.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's me there. Thanks,
Josh.
Thank you.
No, that was really useful. So those digital resources are a second edition from our first one, if any of you have previously purchased the first edition Mastering Maths. But our new edition is within a new platform called Boost, which we only launched in the spring, so I imagine most of you won't be familiar with it. So Nikki's just going to do a quick demo on the Boost platform itself, so you can see what it looks like and the different functionality that we've got, and hopefully it's a lot more user-friendly.
Thanks, Chrissy. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so this is Boost. This is our brand new online platform, and this is hosting our new Key Stage 3 maths resources. It is based upon the previous platform that we had, but it's got some really great new and improved functions. So following on from Josh's explanation of the PowerPoint presentations, if I give you a quick whistle-stop tour. So this is on our main screen hosting the resources. All of the topics are listed on the left-hand side, and then the sub-units that you can click into. There are some great introduction resources with some really useful teacher notes on how to use each of the PowerPoint presentations, and also links to the answers for the textbooks as well. You can drill into each of the individual sub-units. So for example, if I show you the single events, you'll see that we've got the downloadable PowerPoint presentations, plus also mobile ready equivalents as well. We also have interactive tests, downloadable worksheets with the accompanying answers, and then we've also included some external web links, and there'll also be the direct relevant links to the student textbooks as well. We've made sharing these resources really straightforward, taking into account at a Key Stage 3 level, and also, God forbid, allowing for, if we end up having to go into any further lockdowns, let's hope not, but it's good to have it there as a backup. So very simply, if I were in a planning position, I could say, okay, I'm definitely going to be using the Developing Understanding presentation in my next lesson. I'm going to favourite that, along with the relevant interactive test to do that as a front of class activity, and the relevant worksheet, and I'll signpost the answers for myself as well. Simply favouriting those resources. You can see they're then popped into my favourite section, and they're there for me until I decide to unfavourite them. Okay, so back into the main resources. That's a quick way of you being able to store the resources ready for being able to project them to your students. Should you either want to set up homework task, or should we have to go into a remote teaching situation again? We use the universal share icon throughout Boost. So I could very easily, using the share icon, I could add the PowerPoint presentation onto a clipboard. I could include a relevant worksheet and perhaps an external web link as well. You can see that they're dropped over here on the right on my clipboard. I can reorder them. Might decide to take something out, put something else in. And again, then referring to the universal share icon, we've got various ways that we can share the resources. We can drop them straight into Boost, so we can set up all students with their own username and password. We've also integrated with Google Classroom and with Microsoft Teams. Keeping it much simpler, if you wish, you can just generate a web link to be able to drop into an email to communicate, or you can drop it into a Word document as well. If I were to share within Boost, I have the opportunity to copy in any teachers. I could rename the assignment, and I could add some instructions to my students. I could decide whether I'm scheduling the assignment for a later date. I could set a due date. I could even set that due date for much further in advance if I wanted to. Moving on would then allow me to either assign the work to a specific student, perhaps they'd had a couple of weeks off and needed to catch up on some work, or I could go to my already created groups, which are fairly easy to administer, and assign those resources to those students. It will remind me if I had already shared those resources with those students, but I can choose to override that and share them anyway. When the student next logs in, they would see that they've got that assignment ready to complete. So moving on from the main resources, we've also included course plans. So you'll see included is a whole course plan, and then we've broken it down into the 3 individual years. If I show you the year 7 plan, you can see that we've hyperlinked each of the resources that we've included, and you can see a preview thumbnail. And then we've included the national curriculum statements and noted it into the strands. What's also useful, you can choose to download this and look at it in a Word document. Within downloading it, you can choose to just download specific units. So if you just wanted to download this term at a time, you can do. It also enables you to edit the course plan. You can just edit the structure. So you may decide that depending on timetabling, you actually want to teach Unit 3 before you teach Unit 2, reorganise those. You can then go even more granular and you can move over into the editor view and you can edit the content, free type here. You can use your right click to delete rows, colour code, insert rows above, below. And you can also then use the plus icons to add other resources from Boost or to upload your own external resources. So you may have a trusty PowerPoint presentation that really explains a great term and you want to include it in your plan. You can choose to save this edited plan to be able to look at a later stage. And then you can decide to share that plan with other colleagues should you wish to. And that will then always be saved as a personalised course plan. Really comprehensive. I'll move on now to the eBooks. So we have 2 different subscription options. Every core subscription includes one front of class ebook, which can be used for teaching on front of class and for planning. Our premium subscription allows you to allocate unlimited copies of the books to your students that they would be able to access at their leisure. Assuming that we've got a core subscription and just one front of class book to use, you can click into the ebook. It will remember the last page that you last visited. You can view it as a single or a double page view. Let's say we want to focus on this skill checker. Use my zoom and navigate. Nice and high resolution for the students sat at the back of the class. We've also linked in the relevant resources to the pages. So by clicking on the resources, it will then give me a direct link to the PowerPoint presentations, any of the external resources that we may have added. They're all there, one click, and they will open into a brand new tab. You can also bookmark pages, so you can see that I've bookmarked these ones here, and they can be saved for me to go back to at any point. Nice and ideal for prior planning. You can come out of that at any time and go back to your main resources. So going back then to the resources that I showed you at the beginning, you can also use Boost if you're wanting to just browse and have a look through whilst you're planning. So you could open up one of the PowerPoint presentations. You could choose to download it as it was shown as examples how Josh showed us on the screen. But actually, if you're just wanting to browse and just refresh your memory as to what's included, you can just browse through them here. And likewise, that works in exactly the same way with the knowledge tests and all of the external web links as well. If I show you an interactive test as an example, so I could be doing this as a front of class activity. Tell me that I've already had a look at this test before. All of the tests are self-marking, multiple choice. There'll be various formats that you can work your way through. And completing this as a teacher, these results aren't going anywhere. However, when we previously added this interactive test into our clipboard and assigned it to the student, had that student have completed the test, they would then, as a teacher, I would be able to look into the report section and be able to review that test. The reporting section is really quite comprehensive. I'll show you as an example the basic knowledge test results, which I can go into here. let's give an example. So I can search for a specific test, or I could browse. So it finds the test that I want to review. Step 2 allows me to select either a specific student, or I could pick a group that I've shared that test with. Generate the report. Initially, I've got a summary here. So out of the 11 students that I've assigned it to, 4 completed it on time, 3 were late, 4 haven't done it at all. As a simple overview, we can see how long each student took to complete the test, and we can see their score. I could even go more granular, and I could open up each person, so I could look at Melanie's individual report and then move along up here. I could then drill it down and look at the results for each of the individual questions. This would then be heat maps, so I'd be able to identify where we may perhaps have any gaps in knowledge. You could choose to compare this group with another group, so another year 7 group, perhaps being taught by somebody else, to see how the knowledge is comparing. I could download these results into an Excel spreadsheet, and I could also then share this report with a colleague that would then be able to be sent a notification to be able to know that this is available for them to have a look at as well. And quite easily, at any point, you can jump straight to any of the knowledge tests that we've got here. So either directly from the resources where we were on the front page, or you can decide to just hop straight to the knowledge test. And I will just show you one other test just to give you an idea, so you can see how the different formats vary. So this is quite a nice example, this test using tables and charts. You'll see that there are some featured images, and the students have to select the answer that they think is right. One click dropped in. This will be a various, so it will have question 1 of 2, using the image, selecting the answer. A drop down as an alternative. So there's real variety to the test so that they don't become monotonous. And then lastly, just to point out what's quite useful is you can search through the entire course. So you might want to search something like multiplying decimals. So I can determine whether I want to search through this specific subscribed course, or I could look at everything that Hodder publishes. But in this instance, if I just look at my subscribed course, defaults to look at all of my resources. So we can see that I've got a worksheet for multiplying decimals. I've also got front of class presentation. I could decide to specifically look at knowledge tests. It allows you to be quite granular with the search. It's very useful if you're in a planning situation. And that really is the whistle-stop tour of Boost. If there's any questions, please do feel free to shout out.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Nikki. Yeah, we'll open up the floor to any questions. Please just unmute yourself and shout, or if you prefer, put it in the chat and we can read it out. I think you might have all been so comprehensive that we've answered everybody's questions.
This is just a question for the teachers here. I'm just curious to know what you've seen before this. Have you seen, do you have a full overview or any marketing materials on what we cover already, or was this your first engagement with this series?
Hello, hi. This is my first, so I don't have any experience, detailed experience with this. So I'm really impressed. I really like it, and obviously I'm going to pass it on to my department.
Good, that's what we want to hear.
Very much.
So yeah, just with Boost, I think it's worth mentioning, just in case nobody picked up on this. So the eBooks are available for purchase sort of individually for, what are they, £6? And they are the entire textbooks, the print textbooks, but in digital form. You get, as we've said, you get one copy of that with the Boost Core. And if you buy the Boost Premium, subscribe to the Boost Premium, you get unlimited copies. Those eBooks are, you can use them to make notes in. Students can use them to make notes. You can also access various other links through those books. One set of through the ebooks, and also I was going to say in Boost, one thing you can do with the third-party links that we're talking about, we mentioned. These are things like GeoGebra. You probably know GeoGebra, and also some various enrich resources for particular topics. Another one that we put in is linked straight through to this platform called Bluetick, where for every topic, you can link through to the relevant video in Bluetick, which is a 2 or 3 minute video, and then a bunch of questions within that as well, which is freely available. So that's quite a powerful resource. It's built in within Boost.
In my school, we use iPads. So
yeah.
Can it be displayed on iPads? So is it the right platform for that?
Yes, it's the one advantage of Boost ahead of that we've changed from our old platform, Dynamic Learning, is that it's totally mobile and tablet friendly.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, if the ebooks was the route that you were going down for your students having their own iPad, that you can access the ebook how I did on a browser, but we've also got an app that goes alongside it as well, which allows the students to have access offline to the ebook as well, so they can make annotations, and then they can synchronize the book so that then those annotations are available for them offline as well.
But is it the same like for the AQA level 2 further IGCSE application?
Yes, at the moment that book is still in our dynamic learning platform, but it will actually be moving to the new Boost platform before the end of the year.
So there is a new Boost platform. Okay.
Yes.
Because I'll be using that previous one.
Yeah. No. As soon as we have those dates, I will be letting you know. You'll get an email.
We're gradually migrating the older stuff across to the new platform. So yeah, AQA level 2 is probably October, might be September.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. I can't see any more questions in the chat.
Can I just ask one more? Sorry. So this is all digital, and is there any way of combination of the proper exercise book and the digital learning?
Yeah, so all the textbooks are print and the practice books as well. So they're available. The textbooks are £19.99 print, and the practice ones £6.99, and then we have ebook versions available as well. If you do choose to subscribe to the digital and the print, then you will get a teacher copy of the ebooks as well. So you can always have that on screen as well as having the physical copy in front of you and for the students.
Because, so I love the ebook and all this. This is absolutely fantastic. But I do think that using more senses, the classic pen and paper, I think it is a bit more thorough, more deeper or something. So I would like to combine, because this is amazing, quick. You can show a lot of things, variations, perfect. Just I'm not sure about it if they just click on that it is deep learning.
Yeah,
I don't know.
no.
This is my experience. Maybe it's
we
wrong.
agree. We like print and digital, so we have the both.
Thank you.
It was a lovely meeting. Thank you so much for letting me in a bit late.
Oh, no, that's all right. I'm sorry if you missed the beginning. But thank
sorry.
you.
I just got the reminder and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot. So, but it's beautiful. I like the platform. I'll pass it on with the recording to my boss. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's all recorded. It's all recorded. So we had quite a few more teachers booked in who are obviously waiting to see the recording. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Well, I'll let the rest of you go and then enjoy the sunshine if you're in the UK, which has finally come out after some rain. And I will send a recording round shortly after this. But thank you for joining.
Yeah, just to, if you've got any questions at all that you think of later, just contact
the maths email, so maths@hodder.co.uk, and we can get
straight back to you, because there's a lot of detail in there to look at. So anyway, thanks for coming. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay.